Oh, sure.
Yeah, we are ready now.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
cool.
can start the recording now.
Yeah, cool, cool. So, what time is it in Germany?
It's 5 p.m.
Oh, so you are 3 hours, 4 hours behind me. Yeah.
Three and a half.
Oh, I see. So, Darshan, what do you do?
So I'm a product designer and a maker.
Yep.
Uh, I'm currently living in Berlin. So I
Hmm.
work as a senior product designer at Graph CMS.
Hmm.
Graph CMS is a headless CMS company.
Yep.
What it does is it allows the enterprises to create content at scale and also with a lot of flexibility. So it's kind of taking over the traditional CMS industry.
Yeah.
And apart from this, I also have a side project called as Product Disrupt.
Yeah.
It's a curated list of resources where anyone can go to learn product design.
Yeah.
I also send out a newsletter every 2 weeks, which is
Oh.
again a curation of a lot of resources that I come across. I would put it in the newsletter. So people could get those resources to start building out their own side projects or even their companies.
Yeah. Hey.
And there's a lot of design inspiration and stories also in the newsletter.
Oh, great. Hey, so you said headless CMS, right? So that means they use it from the command line?
Not really. I mean, you can use it from the command line. So the way that you use the headless CMS is you make a lot of API calls on your front end,
Oh,
and
I see.
then for the content editors, you also get a UI. So through that, they can build the schema, and then they can go inside the UI and add the content. So for content editors, they don't really have to have any technical knowledge. But for the people who are actually going to use that, they will need to bring their own front end, and it allows you to integrate with any front end stack. So it's not dependent upon any of the front end stack. You could use a static site generator like Gatsby, Yugo. There are so many out there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you could just and also you could build more Android application and native iOS application. You could also have a interface in the electronic car, and you could use the same content in all of those mediums.
So wait, so what is the CMS doing? What is the graph CMS, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it's a content as a service. So what essentially
oh,
happens is
hmm,
if you instead of storing your content into a traditional CMS, if you
hmm,
store it into a headless CMS,
hmm.
you can have
Oh,
that same content getting access everywhere in all different kind of front ends.
I see. So is it like a WordPress site, but with a REST API at a scale?
Yeah, so it could either be REST or GraphQL, and
Yeah.
our company is a native GraphQL CMS company. So it is optimized for GraphQL.
Okay. So the API is GraphQL as well.
Yeah, API is GraphQL API.
Oh, that
So
is
we
so
have
cool,
mutate.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
management API and mutation API. It also allows you the API. Obviously, you have to use the API to access the content in your front
Yeah.
end,
Yeah.
but you can also make the changes to your content through API. So you, in that case, if you're tech savvy, you don't really need to go into the interface. You
Yeah.
can just do it with code.
Oh, so are you the only people who are doing the CMS with the Graph API?
No, there are quite a few competitors out there.
Yeah.
So and but the thing is that Graph CMS is a native GraphQL
Yeah.
headless
Yeah.
CMS.
Oh, I see.
So
Yeah.
which is why it takes a lot of benefits from the GraphQL, the core of GraphQL. But there are also other CMS who provide REST API and
Yeah.
GraphQL, so there's Contentful and
Hmm.
Prismic and
Hmm.
Sanity,
Hmm.
and there are a lot of players.
Yeah.
But the market is very new. The
Yeah.
industry
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
quite new, so it's very difficult for me to explain it to someone because a lot of people must have never heard of a headless CMS.
Yeah.
So I have to, and then the best thing that I can do is I can give them an example of how people
Yeah.
actually use it, and then it
Yeah.
all makes sense to them.
Yeah, but then that is a very contrived example of what you are doing, right? There is a graph API, so you can fetch anything. You can write a query on the front end, and that is magical, right? You don't have to worry
Yeah,
about and basically then they boil down your work into a WordPress form, right? But that is not what you are doing. Hey, so
yeah,
another
and
yeah, go on.
and the main benefit of this is the power and
Yeah,
scalability.
of
Like
course.
it's
Yeah, yeah,
very fast, and also you don't have to use you are independent to use any front-end stack, right?
Yeah, of
You can
course.
also have native applications, but you can
Hmm.
still use the same content, that you don't have to rewrite everything.
Yeah. Hey, so my question is, you are not a regular designer because designers don't know this much about tech stuff, right? So what's the deal with you? How do you know this much about tech?
So I mean, it's the reason why I know about
Hmm, hmm,
GraphQL and all these things is because I work in a company which provides those kind of services. So it's a part of my job to have at least a basic understanding of it, because there are people who are always going to be talking about these things. I
hmm,
work very closely with engineers,
hmm, hmm,
and they're
hmm,
always talking about this thing. So, and when I design any features
hmm.
or there are any product refinements, is on top of that. If I
Yeah,
don't have an understanding, then it becomes very difficult to do that. I don't have
yeah,
to actually go ahead and write the code. So
yeah,
no, I don't have to do that, but it's important to understand that.
yeah.
And the other thing is that I started my career as a not my career. I pursued engineering.
Hmm,
I went to an engineering college
yeah.
in Mumbai. It's called
Oh,
Somaya Vidya Vihar.
oh, that is like 25 kilometers near me.
Where
Yep.
do you live?
I live in Dombivli, Kalyan, if you have heard of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've been there many times. I have some relatives there.
Hey, so can you turn
So,
your camera a little down so I can see more of your? Yeah,
yeah. By
perfect.
the way, are you recording or how?
Yep.
What's the deal here?
Yeah. So you can see on the top left corner the recording thingy. So we are recording.
And you would then be taking bits and pieces of it and editing it and then putting it out.
So I'll explain the process. So I record the entire bit, that is basic, an hour long episode. Then we release the hour long episode on YouTube, and then we release it on our audio only podcasts, and then we take out bits from it. So for instance, if we talk about Darshan introduces his company or his work, then we take out bits from it. So it is not a perfect science, we just do it, and we are figuring out how, the way on the way. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, so tell me about your early college life and your how did you get into design?
Yeah. So growing up, I was very fascinated by computer games.
Hmm.
So I wanted to become a game developer. And I knew that to become a game developer, I had to have a background in computer science.
Hmm.
So, which is why I went ahead with engineering.
Hmm.
And I think from my second year of engineering, things started taking a different route. And what happened was I was getting very bored with what they used to teach me at college. I should not be able to make a sense of a lot of those things. And I knew that people in the real world, they use different technologies, and
Yeah.
the way that things work, it's very different.
Yeah.
So, which is why I started exploring all this
Hmm.
open source technologies, and I wanted
Hmm.
to be able to make something with that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I started with WordPress, and then I used to do some bits of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all those things.
Hmm.
And So I started making these
Hmm.
websites. I
Hmm.
also started a blog,
Hmm.
and my first website was a website for a college council. So there are a lot of college council
Yeah.
in our college. It's like a very
Hmm.
active college, and I started making websites for councils. Made two or three websites, and by that time I was known like that council website guy. Everybody used to know me for that guy who can make websites,
Yeah.
and so I was doing that, and I also started freelancing then.
Hmm.
So I got my first project. I actually got it from Twitter, and and when I was working on those side projects, it also started paying, and it was like a big moment of. I would say it was like a huge motivation for me,
Yeah.
because I never thought of it as something that would pay me money,
Hmm.
because my sole aim here was to learn, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it just started with that, and I used to
Hmm.
make websites.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I did not know that there was a concept like design and development and all these
Hmm.
different things.
Hmm. Hmm.
For me, making a website was just making a website.
Yeah. Yeah.
So by the end of my engineering, so in the fourth year, I came across all these things, design,
Hmm.
development,
Hmm.
UI, UX, and all
Hmm.
these things. And I got very curious about UI, UX. And
Hmm.
it's also something because when I used to make the websites,
Hmm.
the design part of it, I used to like it quite a lot. And I used to
Yeah.
spend a lot of time doing that.
Hmm.
And I realized that code is not something that I'm very passionate about. So I
Yeah.
wanted to make a full-time career in
Hmm.
design.
Hmm.
And it was very optimistic of me to expect that a company would come to an engineering college for campus placements and hire
Yeah.
a designer.
Yeah.
But anyways, I wanted to take my chances.
Yeah.
So what happened was I did not find a company which would actually come to college and do that. But what
Surprisingly.
happened was,
Yeah.
yeah, what happened was there was BookMyShow who came to our college. They were hiring for three positions, as I remember.
Hmm.
So one of them was open source,
Hmm.
.NET, and I think there was some database
Hmm. Hmm.
position. So I applied for open source because it was actually my last opportunity,
Hmm.
and I had
Hmm.
secured two large jobs, which was like this companies that come in a truck,
Yeah.
Accenture
Yeah.
and Infosys. So I knew that I'm not going to be unemployed.
Yeah.
I had secured that, and then I was taking my chances.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I just went for the open source position,
Hmm.
and when I went for the first round, the interviewer, he took a look at my resume and saw some of the work that I'd done,
Hmm.
and then he told me that we don't think of you as a developer. You seem like a designer,
Hmm.
and that was my moment. I had to grab it. I got so excited. I told him my whole story. I told him that I wanted I wanted to have a job as a designer,
Hmm.
but it was very difficult for me to find that because I
Hmm.
don't have enough background in design.
Yeah.
So they told me that what we can do is we could go back to our office and we
Hmm.
could see if we have a position like this which would be suitable for me.
Hmm.
And they actually did that. So they hired me as a developer who could design. And
Hmm.
luckily for me, when I joined BookMyShow, they were going through this entire revamp. So if you remember, this BookMyShow had a iframe website
Oh my
uh,
God. Oh
back then,
yeah. Yeah.
and that was the time when I joined. So
Yeah.
when
So this
when they
was
wanted to
in what?
revamp,
In which year? 2000?
I think it's a 2015.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
2015.
Oh, go on. Go on.
So they were revamping the entire website, not just in terms of design, but
Hmm.
also rewriting the backend of it.
Hmm.
So they had a lot of design requirements, and which is why I got enough opportunities to do design work.
Hmm.
And initially they were experimenting with me, so I did a lot of different things. Like I made marketing design,
Yeah.
banners, and posters, and brochures, and
Yeah.
obviously I also did UI UX work. And ultimately, that's what I wanted to do more of.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and they had separate teams in BookMyShow. For marketing design, that would be a separate team, a separate product design team. So when I started making good progress in UI UX, they
Hmm.
ultimately moved me to a product design team,
Hmm.
and I think that's how I became a professional designer then.
Oh, hey, so did you ever make your game, computer game?
No, I couldn't. I
Yeah.
mean, I would actually say that over the time I've actually lost a lot of interest in that because
Yeah.
I did not have access to a lot of things growing up.
Yeah.
So we were not that rich that I would have a computer. The
Gaming
first time that
PC.
I used
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
computer, yeah, I mean not just a gaming PC, a regular
Yeah.
PC as well.
Oh,
So the
yeah.
first time that I used a computer was after 10th. Can you
Oh.
imagine?
Oh, no, I can't.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and in my school we used to have computer classes and
Hmm.
which used to have those old DOS monitors and DOS
Big one.
computers.
Yeah.
And the for us the computer education, the class used to go like this. So they most of the times it used to be theory,
Yeah.
and sometimes they would take us to the lab, and they used to put up a very silly game which would be like a calculation game,
Yeah.
and they would make us sit in a line, and then they would ask us to come chance by chance, and you see the numbers on the screen. They would tell you 10 plus 5, and then you're supposed to say 15, and then they would tell you to press that key, and you'd see fireworks, and that's it. That was my access to computers. So after school, I got some access to computer, and this was the first time that I was also using internet, and I was so fascinated by it. So wherever I used to go, and if I used to see any link, or even if I used to come across any new names, I would just go on the internet and just type it out. So I wanted to, and I kept on doing all of lot. So as you can imagine, that I was deprived of a lot of these things
Yeah.
growing up,
Yeah.
and but I also had relatives who used to have a computer and they used to play all of these fancy games. I used
Yeah.
to always like watching it,
Hmm.
and I would say like I mostly watched people play game, or I mostly watched the videos. I couldn't do it myself. I
Yeah.
wanted to, but I did not, or I couldn't. And so I thought that I want to make games then. And I'm not much of a player, but yeah, I still like some. And these days I would play PUBG
Yeah.
and games like that. and there was this one game called Deus Ex, which was Deus Ex Human
Oh,
Revolution.
I've heard of it, but not played it ever. Yeah.
Yeah, so I finished that game, and that's one of my favorite games. So I played a few games, but over the period of time, I
Yeah.
did not have that much interest, like how passionate I used to be early on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, I did not make any games then.
So, have you played Firewatch by any chance?
Nope.
No, you should check it out. You might love it. It's a beauty. So
Okay.
another question. You said you worked at BookMyShow. So do you still ever see remnants of your work like ghosts roaming around in BookMyShow app, websites, or anywhere? Is there something you see? This is me. I did that.
I think, yeah, that's I can still see that, and I would also tell you the reason why that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I was a very junior designer when I joined BookMyShow,
Yeah.
so I used to only get to work on those things which other people didn't like to.
Okay.
So so there are two famous projects that I did at famous, or I would say two big projects that I did at BookMyShow. So one of them was making an Android application, an iOS application for Indonesia. So BookMyShow was expanding in Indonesia. They always had a presence over there, but they mostly had a website, an information website. But at that point, they also wanted to start taking bookings. So they wanted to come up with this application, and this was mostly trying to encapsulate most of the core flows from the original BookMyShow app and make it into a very simple version for Indonesian audience. So I designed that, and there was another project called Universal Windows Platform. It's not relevant anymore, but
I know that.
this
Yeah.
thing it was quite an innovation when it came out. So it's like how you have responsive websites. You used to have responsive applications with Universal Windows Platform. You could use the same application on your Surface tab, on your Windows Phone, and also on your computer. And I designed the whole whole BookMyShow application for that. And can you imagine, the team was only three people: one
Oh,
product manager,
yeah.
one designer who was very junior, and one software developer who was very senior.
Yeah.
So, and which is why I was working very closely with these people. At that time, I did not get enough opportunity to work with designers, but I was working with people from different streams, and which is why it always kept me open, and I always got to learn from people who were not designers. I also came from engineering background. I made some of applications myself as well. So all of this contributed to what I know today.
Yeah. So the question was, do you see the remnants of your work in the apps?
Yeah. So
Indonesian
that is what
app.
I'm telling
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
this Indonesian app, and
It
I
is.
mean,
Yeah. It looks
Universal
same.
Windows Platform, I think it's
Yeah.
still available there, but
Yeah.
it's not something. I mean, it's not pushed. People don't really use it now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you find out there an application for BookMyShow on
Yeah.
Windows platform, that would be designed by me.
Yeah.
And
Boom. Yeah.
and the Indonesian app also, it has not changed a lot. Also, I would say the original BookMyShow app, it's also not changed. It doesn't change that often. And I was also making some, like I designed a few user flows or a few features into that app. I'm not sure if it exists or not, and I don't really use it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, so why is the Indonesian app different from the Indian app? What are the differences?
The difference is where it was a new application. I mean, it did not have all the functionalities that the Indian app would have. They were just starting out to take the bookings. And also the way that the kind of information that you get there is also very different from Indian cinemas. Because, I mean, the way that, say for example, in Indian cinema, you would have a cinema would give you the number of tickets that they can sell. They would give you a ticket layout. They would give you timings and all those things. And all those things work out a little differently in Indonesia. And so it was mostly cutting down on a lot of features that we could not implement at that time because it was going to be very new. And then some parts of it was giving the audience the information that they need to make the booking.
Oh, I see. Interesting. So after BookMyShow, where did you go from there?
After BookMyShow, I joined Wishberry. It's a crowdfunding platform for creatives in India. So it's quite a small company, and you could think of it like a Kickstarter. But it has a very niche. It serves a very niche audience. So they only take creative projects. And also they do a lot of hand holding. So whenever you have a campaign, there would always be a consultant assigned to you. And they would take you through the whole process of getting crowdfunded. So it's not like a open platform.
Oh, I see.
And I joined them as a product design lead. And the good thing was that it was a very small company, so I was mostly collaborating with the co-founders directly. They had one co-founder looking after the product, and the other was responsible for the business. So I was mostly directly talking to them, and we had a small development team, and I was again the only designer over there. So I was mostly collaborating with all these people and getting the product out.
Oh, I see. So when you joined BookMyShow, was it a behemoth that it is now, or was it a smaller company relatively?
BookMyShow, when I joined, I think it was about 350 people.
I guess I would say mid-sized. So the question which I'm leading to was, what did you like more, working in a bigger company or this smaller one where you had more of a say in what was happening?
So I've actually never really worked in a very large company. I've always worked in a company which would, I think the highest number of people that I've worked with would be 400. So yeah, it would always be a mid-sized company. And so BookMyShow was one of the jobs with a larger company of about 350 people, and they were growing quite a lot. Wishberry was quite small, just about 25 people. And then after that, I became a consultant. I did that for 3 years. And when you are a consultant, you are not a full-time employee. So you're mostly collaborating with only those people who are responsible for the project. So that was also quite small. And I joined Contentful here. Contentful was about 350 people, and they're also growing very rapidly. And now I'm working with Craft CMS, which is just about 30 people. So I would say I've mostly worked with mid-scale to smaller companies, and I would say like I really enjoy working in smaller teams because it gives you a lot of ownership, and I mean you also get to be involved in the end-to-end process, and things move a lot faster.
Of course.
That's the reason why bigger companies cannot move fast, because they are so big and they impact so many divisions within the company, and also the product is impacting so many people. So it's understandable, but that's something that I'm not very passionate about, at least at this stage of my career.
Makes sense. So you really got into design in, I would say, 2012, 13?
2012, yeah, that would be right.
Oh yeah. So what was the key trend that was going on? Was it material design or iOS 7, 6? What was the thing you saw this and you were like, I want to build beautiful shit? What was that spark for you?
I think at that time it was mostly, so Photoshop was the only tool that people were using to do UI work.
What?
And
go on.
yes, Sketch was not even out there. And so in terms of what I used to see was mostly websites. So I've always been a very keen observer of things that get published on awards. The website with 3 Ws. And it's a showcase where essentially the best websites of the internet would be showcased over there. So I used to always see that, and I used to get very fascinated about that. And so for me, it was always designing for the web. I have fair experience of designing applications as well. But I would say, I mean, and you'd also agree that a lot of people get into design through applications. But for me, it's always been web. Like web is my first love, and it would always be. Applications, yes, it's a lot more fun to design applications, but applications come with their own set of guidelines, and there's only so much you can do with them. And with web, you have to. It's like a big canvas. You can go crazy on it. And it allows you to do a lot of different things. And also when you're making complex applications or web apps, it has a lot of complex use cases than a simple application. So you're getting immersed into that complexity, which also allows you a lot of freedom. That's always something that I've really liked.
Oh, so I do work a little bit with the UX, and for the mobile apps, it is like you said, Apple has some guidelines. The nav bar should be here and the sidebar should be on the left side. And Android has some guidelines. So you don't have to, go uh, go to nuts on the design. You can just do whatever WhatsApp is doing and your chat app will be fine, right? But for the web, yeah,
Yeah.
but for the web it
No,
is,
no, you can
yeah,
continue, but I would just add one point to it
sure,
later.
sure. Oh, okay, but for the web it is really intimidating for me, because it there is a 27-inch monitor. What am I supposed to do with it, right? It is really difficult. How do you go from zero to there? uh, how do you fill the gaps?
Yeah. So, I mean, coming back to your point about there are guidelines and everything in place
Yeah,
for mobile application, I think which is great
yeah.
because when people start using a product,
Hmm.
they're actually trying to just solve their own problem,
Yeah,
and your product solves it in a way, and which is
yeah.
why they use it.
Hmm. Hmm.
They otherwise they don't really give a fuck about you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and and with the guidelines and with the evaluation of all these things,
Hmm.
it's become a lot more easier to push out those products. And
Hmm.
now there's convention with a lot of things,
Hmm.
like when you click on those three lines, the
Yeah,
hamburger icon, it's going to open a menu.
yeah.
You know what a search icon is going to do. You know where you can find particular things. You
Yeah.
know that if you go to settings, you'd be able to change your account
Hmm.
credentials and all these things, which is great because convention makes it very easier for the
Hmm.
user, and uh, the learning curve is also very smooth, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Of
Because
course.
when you open a new application, you're not trying to learn that
Hmm.
application. It's
Yeah.
way more easier for you to use that,
Hmm.
and that's great.
Yeah.
uh, but also with the web, uh, because it also gives you freedom, it's something that allows you to itch your creative
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
muscles,
Yeah.
and which is also fun. So I don't have any disagreements or any dislikings around that. It's great.
Hmm.
Both of
Hmm.
them have their own purpose.
Hmm. Hmm.
And to answer your question about web being such a large canvas and how do you
Yeah.
narrow down on a particular solution,
Yeah.
so I'd say with every problem that you're trying to solve, you have certain users in mind.
Hmm.
You're thinking
Hmm.
of those people that are going to use those applications.
Hmm.
So you have your demographics. If you
Hmm.
know your audience well, it's going to make it a lot more easier for you to narrow down on something.
Hmm.
So say for example, if your application is going to be used by old people,
Hmm.
now old people, they have poor eyesight.
Hmm.
They're not very familiar with all the things that you do.
Hmm.
Like see, there are a lot of savvy patterns that you can use on your
Hmm.
app, which makes it very makes it look very elegant or
Hmm.
very modern or very mature.
Hmm.
But those patterns are usually missed out by old people.
Hmm.
So if you know that your audience is that, then just take those things into consideration when you're designing it. Similarly, if you're doing it for kids, there are different things. So it's all about
Hmm.
starting from this solution, and then starting from the problem, and then
Yeah.
trying to come up with a solution around that.
Yeah.
Not building something because you like to build it and then try to sell it to people.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that. Makes sense. So, can you explain the scenario which you just explained? The age group difference wala scenario. Can you explain it with a real example of a button or an interaction or a workflow that is different for different users? Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
yeah.
So I can give you an example which would help you understand the difference,
Mm,
the nuances that you consider for the different age group,
mm,
and also to consider how people are going to use something in a different environment.
mm,
Now, I used to consult a company called Sapat. They make software solutions for restaurants, and they are based in Dubai. They have their presence in a lot of
mm,
different countries, but they're headquartered in Dubai.
mm,
So I was working with them on this project called Kitchen Display System. It's a system which is placed inside a kitchen, and what it does essentially is that when you receive new orders, it shows that orders on the screen. So you
mm,
could think of it like a big dashboard.
mm,
Uh, you continuously see new orders, and the
mm.
people who work inside the kitchen, they take a look at that and they start preparing it.
Yeah.
So traditionally, how it happens in kitchens is they have assembly line. So
Yeah.
they get a printout and they stick it on the assembly line. So this was essentially replacing the printers,
Yeah.
and also not just replacing it, but also giving you a lot of different features which would help you improve your whole kitchen efficiency.
Yeah.
So when I was designing this, it's not like a traditional iPad app, right? So,
Yeah.
so it was a web app
Yeah.
which you could use on a TV. You could also use it on a tab.
Hmm.
You could use it on anything which would allow you to display it.
Yeah.
And the use case was that either it would be hung on a wall,
Hmm.
or it would be placed in a accessible
Hmm.
distance. So if it's a TV, then it's hung on a wall, and the way that you provide input to that would be through a numeric pad.
Hmm.
So you have controls on the numeric pad,
Yeah.
and you can all interact with it. And if
Yeah.
it's a tab, in that case it's a
I
touch,
even touch it. Yeah.
then it just directly touch those
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
So taking all those things into consideration was very important when you designed that particular application.
Yeah.
And also, now you know that when people are using this, they are not using it on the hand, right?
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
hand, it's not handheld.
Yeah.
Uh, so making all those savvy decisions of making it easy to touch and all scroll navigation and all those
Yeah.
patterns and everything, that's not going to be used because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not going to be held in a hand.
Yeah.
And people who work inside the kitchen, they work with greasy hands.
Yeah.
It's difficult for them to interact with those things. They're always in a hurry. They are mostly glancing at the screen. They
Yeah.
are not
Yeah.
interacting with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way that they are going to use this application is going to be very different than a
Hmm.
normal user.
Hmm.
So which is why we had to remember that all the navigation pattern and everything should not be used, because what you see on the screen is exactly what you need. You're not going to expect a user to click on something or touch on something and anything. Like
Yeah.
say for example, if you have 7 items,
Hmm.
and then if you and your UI can only fit 5 items,
Yeah.
you can't say load more and have a button. People are not going to go there and click load more.
Of course.
It has to be open by default.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we had to design those things, taking into consideration all those things, that it's always upfront. There are no hidden patterns or no navigation.
Yeah.
And so all
Yeah.
those decisions are based on how people would use it.
Yeah. So I used to think a designer just made UI mockups in Adobe XD. That was my understanding of what designers did. So I guess it is a lot more nuanced than what I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah. Yeah. So random question. So what's your favorite color?
My favorite color, I'm not sure. It actually depends upon the context. So if I like greenery.
Yeah.
So green is my favorite color overall.
Yeah.
But for the food items, I really like pink color. So when I see a food item in pink color, it's exciting. I would like to eat that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Milkshakes, ice creams, pink color is very nice on that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So if for clothing, I think black is a perfect color for clothing, because I don't have to. It doesn't get dirty.
Look
I can. I can. I don't have to. I don't have to worry
Wash
about
it.
washing it.
Yep.
So yeah, there are a lot of these things. So it always, for me, most of the things would depend upon the context. But
makes sense.
green would be a general preference.
Oh, green will be a general preference. So it isn't it really funny how when you start to really learn about the things you care, you suddenly realize all of this nuance, and then you are not even able to make simple decisions. So for instance, I make music. So if you had asked me 6 years ago, what kind of music do you like? I would say I like Eminem, and that would be a very simple answer, and that would be it. But once you start learning about things, you're like, no, but then this is better. And you just run out of all of that simplicity. And it gets a lot complicated. Yeah.
I mean, I would say that it would depend upon, it would again depend upon the context. Now, say, for example, if you're talking to someone who already has a lot of understanding of music, you would not give them a basic answer like that, because they would. Yeah, because you know that you can talk about a lot of things, and it would also make sense to them. You can have a very good conversation, so you would dive deeper.
Yeah.
If you talk to me about music, I'm not a very passionate person about music, and I don't. So like if you start talking about those things to me, it wouldn't make any sense to me. So I think you have to be very. It's like depends upon the situation. You can decide whether you want to dive deep or you just want to keep it simple.
So I'm just picking off a topic off the list which I had. So what's your favorite design? What's your most, I'm butchering the question, but the question is, what's your favorite designed product? What's that one thing for you?
This one is actually very simple for me. So I think that Google Maps is one
Yeah.
of the best design products, and it's something that so it's very nicely designed. It has a very important place in the world, and it for me, I would say it's very. I would say it would be very difficult for me to travel without Google Maps, especially if you're traveling in a different country where people don't speak the same language. I would not be able to imagine my travels without Google Maps.
Yeah.
And I actually did a thorough case study on Google Maps because it's something that I've been very passionately observing how Google Map has evolved over time.
Yeah.
And I really like how they have built this community around the product, which is called Google Local Guides.
Yeah.
So, and that thing, so this is one thing. I call the case study as the invisibly visible community of
Yeah.
Google Local Guides, and the reason why I called it that was they did not have like a separate community product, or
Yeah.
they did like a big launch, or like it's never been talked about as a product in itself, right?
Mm.
And also they don't push that feature like in media,
Mm. Mm.
but it has such great acquisition, and it's so organic. The growth of it has been so organic. You see so many people who passionately go to Google Maps and write the reviews. They would answer the questions, and I've been doing that for such a long time. I think I'm on a level 7 now, and they've also sent me some goodies. And I know that a lot of people do that. They also have a web community around it. There's a forum as well. They do some walks, and it's so useful when you. For me now, whenever I want to enter a restaurant,
Mm.
I would not blindly to make that
Yeah,
decision. I
of
would
course.
first see
Yeah.
on Google Maps
Yeah.
what is the rating, and for me,
Mm.
yeah, I can get very genuine rating from there.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah, of course. Makes sense.
tailored,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can people would just share their opinion or share their
Yeah.
experience, and it's so easy to get a very good understanding of that place even before you being there.
Yeah.
So the basic details would also the basic
Mm.
details would give you all you need to know about the
Mm.
place.
Mm.
And
Mm.
when you start reading the reviews, it also gives you a very different perspective of those things,
Mm.
and it has grown incredibly. So Google
Yeah.
Maps, hands down, one of the favorite products.
Oh, that is such a underrated product, right? I mean, no one has ever. I thought the answer would be pretty basic, like my AirPods. That was the answer which I thought you would give. You liked your AirPods, and that would be okay,
Oh,
makes sense.
I don't use AirPods.
You don't.
I'm not a passionate Apple
You are not.
user.
Surprising. You are a
No,
designer. I thought you would be. Aren't all of
I only
you
use
Apple
these tools
fanboys?
which
Yeah.
help me. I
Yeah.
only use these tools which help me get my work done, and those are
Yeah.
just tools. I own
Yeah.
them. They don't own me.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. So, have you used AirPods? I have not. Have you?
No, I don't have an Apple phone. I've been
Oh,
an
yeah.
Android user ever since it came out.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So, right now I'm using this truly wireless earbuds, and those are the one of the best purchases I have ever made. Um,
Uh,
are yours truly wireless as well?
so I very recently got this earbuds.
Yeah.
It's called JBL Reflect Flow,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and the reason I got this was I want because I started running, and when
yeah,
I
yeah.
run, I also want to listen to podcasts. It
Hmm,
used to
hmm.
become it becomes very difficult with the
Yeah, the
wired
wires keep juggling. Yeah.
earphones. So that's the reason why I
Yeah.
bought this. And to be very honest, you would not get very passionate answers about gadgets from me.
Oh,
I
hardware
just
is
use
not
them
your.
because they
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
no hardware. I mean, there are people who have
Yeah.
made those products. It's a business.
Yeah.
It solves a particular problem for you. That's
Yeah.
all there is to. That's all. That's about it.
Yeah.
They are not something
You are
different. It's
passionate
just a
about. Yeah.
product for me.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Hey, so mm, going back to Google Maps, what was that one feature that you liked the most about Google Maps? Um, is it the search or the night mode or the terrain? What do you like the most? Reviews?
And now that's very difficult to answer because
Yeah.
most of the things that they have in there has a very particular purpose and
Yeah.
it solves it perfectly.
Hmm.
But I could say I could tell you what's one of the new features that I saw which was very interesting.
Hmm.
So recently I started seeing that on a lot of locations on Google Maps they put a small speaker icon,
Yeah.
and if you click on that icon,
Hmm.
it just tells you how the name is supposed to be pronounced.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
is so useful for me because the way in different languages the
Hmm.
way things
Hmm.
are written, it's not pronounced exactly like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even if you might be saying the same thing,
Yeah.
people might not understand it because they
Yeah.
pronounce it differently.
Yeah.
So living here in Germany,
Yeah.
uh, I sometimes, even when I'm asking the right things, I struggle to get a right answer because they did not understand the pronunciation. And what I
Yeah.
would do is I would just click that one simple button on Google. It would tell
Yeah.
me how that thing is pronounced, and that's how I would pronounce it. And it's so simple. It solves the problem in a very simple way.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So in India, we just think it is a waste of space because it's not useful here. But I get where you are coming from. So how is
I,
life
so
in?
I
Yeah,
think
go on.
I
No, no,
and
go
I
on.
also think that the way that they have implemented is also very smart. I don't think it's available all the time and every time. I only started seeing that feature when I've moved to a different country, and
Hmm.
so my application, Google Maps understands that I might need this because I'm not a native to this language.
Oh, yeah, that. Boom. Huh.
So
Makes sense.
yeah, I would not see that in India, and that would probably not be required for me.
And German people might also not see it, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Huh.
Anyways, they use a localized version of that.
Oh, yeah, makes sense. Hey, so how's life in Berlin?
It's great. I'm very grateful that I'm here at this point because I know that there's a fucking pandemic going on outside, and a
Yeah.
lot of a lot of countries are not equipped to uh, fight with that.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of other countries are struggling quite a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
and their life is very hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things are almost back to normal here. Obviously,
Hmm.
they follow all the rules, which is you
Hmm.
have to wear a mask, and
Hmm.
there are some rules in place here, but
Hmm.
everything is almost back to normal. You can go out, you can
Hmm.
have a nice
Hmm.
drink at
Hmm.
a bar, you can
Hmm.
go eat food outside, you can
Yeah.
travel, so you can do a lot of those things.
Yeah. 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 Makes sense. So when did you move to Berlin? This year?
It's I moved here in December last year.
Oh, it will be a year soon. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so what about the worst UI experience you have ever had? For me, it was SoundCloud's music app. It is like horribly designed. What was the one for you? I just hated the app.
I got a pass that message to people here. SoundCloud's design is done in Berlin. They have
Oh,
office here.
but
So
that is just horrible.
for
Yeah.
me, I
Yeah.
I think I think most of the
Hmm.
airline applications are very terribly
Oh
designed,
my God. Yeah. Yeah.
and so for me, I think that booking a flight
Yeah.
on an airline website is almost like playing a game,
Yeah.
and it's a dirty game. I don't like to play that game. Uh, it would be, I mean, I know that there are a lot of nuances that goes in there because uh, the way that they price things is very different. They take a lot of things into consideration, like where
Hmm.
you're flying from, where you're flying to,
Yeah.
what kind of flight you're taking, and all those
Yeah.
things. But
Yeah.
wouldn't you agree that it would be so much easier if the experience was nicer? People
Yeah.
would
Of
people would
course.
travel more. Like for me to go on that website and make a booking is a painful process. I don't like that.
Have you used
And
make?
also
Yeah.
another thing,
Yeah. Go on. Go on.
another bad design practice. Many a times I get this random emails from some IT department consultancy or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
They give you suggestions, or they give you suggestions on how to save tax and etc.
Yeah.
And the emails are so terribly designed. Uh, they would have a red background and they would use
Yeah.
a blue text and everything
Yeah.
is bold.
Yeah.
It's just so difficult to read that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it might just drive you nuts, right? You are a designer and you see this, you're like, what is happening? How does this even happen, right? But
I'm okay with it. I make my peace with it. It's okay.
hey, but have you used Make My Trips app? That is beautifully designed. For a newbie at least, it worked fine. The mobile app.
I would say I think Make My Trip takes a lot of inspiration from Clear Trip, and Clear Trip is one of the most
Yeah.
nicest airline booking application in India, and it was
Oh,
also one of the application that was. I mean, it was the early days of design, and
yeah.
people who worked on that, I also know. I don't know them personally, but I know
Hmm.
who worked
Hmm.
on that, and
Hmm.
they are considered to be very good designers. And
Hmm.
also, uh, Clear Trip and Make My Trip, they're aggregation. So most of these aggregation
Yeah. Yeah.
websites, they are still nicely done. They are
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
products.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
kiwi.com and skyscanner.com. All of those are fine. I was
Yeah.
actually talking about
Yeah. The
I was actually talking about
airline
the
ones.
own
The
website of
yeah.
the airline. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Air India's website or Indigo's website,
Yeah.
etc.
Have you tried a railway bookings website? That would give you a
Oh,
nightmare.
IRCTC. Yeah,
Yeah.
IRCTC is a nightmare.
How does that happen? I mean, railway bookings, then uh, trying to book your admission booking websites. Those are horrible
Yeah, so
ones.
these people, I think they just don't believe in design enough to think that it's a investment that they should be making. Uh, they would usually like to, and also these
Hmm.
people who usually work on those kind of things, they are not really from the tech background.
Yeah,
Uh, so which is why they don't really like to invest any money inside tech, and which is why
yeah,
they end
yeah,
up having such
yeah.
horrible
Makes sense.
products.
Makes sense. Hey, so we are almost towards the end of the show. Would you like to plug something? Your newsletter, your company, consultancy, anything?
There's one thing that I can plug.
Sure, sure.
So I'm currently in the process of writing an ebook about cracking a
Oh,
product design interview.
nice.
And the reason why I'm writing this is because in the start of the pandemic, I
Hmm.
lost my job here,
Oh,
and
hmm.
it was very difficult to get another job because most of the companies are on hiring freeze. A
Hmm.
lot of small companies were not able to afford senior designers,
Hmm.
so it was a tough time, and I had
Hmm.
to apply to a lot of companies.
Hmm.
So whenever I used to interview with someone, I used to keep a track of it in Notion,
Hmm. Hmm.
and uh, and I would see. So I would write down all the feedback and insights and everything that I would get
Yeah,
from that interview.
yeah,
It
yeah.
helped me in two ways. So one was when I would have another interview
Hmm.
with the same company, I would
Hmm.
know how the conversation has moved forward. So it was like
Yeah,
my own CRM,
yeah, yeah.
and it would help me prepare better. And
Hmm.
also, I took a lot of learnings from one interview to another interview.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I was documenting all of this, it was way more easier for me to
Hmm.
iterate on things and
Hmm.
get better with every interview.
Yeah,
And ultimately, I found a very nice job.
yeah.
So what happened was, at the end of it, I was
Hmm.
left with this big repository of questions and
Yeah,
feedback and insights and everything.
yeah.
And uh, I thought I could. So most
Hmm.
of the things that I do, I just share it out in the open.
Hmm.
I thought I could just share this, but then I
Hmm.
also realized that it would not be as useful if I just share it like
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So I wanted to make it into a
Hmm.
comprehensive
Hmm.
resource.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I decided that I would start writing an ebook,
Yeah.
and it would not just be that one ebook, but I
Hmm.
would also give the resume template, the
Yeah,
cover
yeah,
letter template,
yeah.
say a portfolio template, and
Hmm.
also how you can communicate to those people. So some templates for writing
Yeah.
emails, follow-up emails, and
Hmm.
writing emails for asking
Hmm.
feedback.
Hmm.
So I'm working on this whole resource for
Hmm.
cracking a product design interview. So if
Hmm.
people are interested in that, you could either sign up to
Hmm.
Product Disrupt newsletter,
Hmm.
or you could also follow me on Twitter.
Yeah.
On Twitter is a place where I would share my whole journey and
Hmm.
learnings and how I'm
Hmm. Hmm.
working on it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and I also keep on sharing a lot of
Yeah.
things that I
Yeah.
do
Sure.
work-wise and also in personal life on
Yeah.
Twitter.
Hey, so any timeline on the book? 6 months, 5 months? Any timeline?
Yeah. I've not given myself a very hard deadline.
Yeah.
So right now I'm in the process of moving my
Hmm.
uh,
Notion
blog from
docs. Yeah.
Medium to
Hmm.
no. I'm in the process of moving my Medium blog to WordPress. So once
Oh.
I'm done with that, I think I would launch that in a few days. And once
Hmm.
that's out, I would go all in on the book. So right
Yeah.
now I already have a structure and a
Hmm.
lot of
Hmm.
things ready.
Hmm.
Uh, but once that's done, I would
Hmm.
go all in into the book, and I think I might be able to release that in 3 or 4 months maybe.
Oh, great. So after you are done with that, you are welcome to come again on the show and we can talk about it again if you are interested.
Yeah, sure
Yeah.
thing. I
Yeah.
would love to.
Yeah. So just closing. So you are a poet as well. How do you find time for that?
I'm not sure if I would call myself a poet.
It's okay.
Poems is
Have
something
you
that I used
wrote?
to write.
Have you written a poem? If you have written a poem, you're a poet.
So it's something that I used to write when I started engineering, and
Hmm.
those were stressful times.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was mostly ramblings of a teenager. I was
Yeah.
getting all the teenage emotions out there. So I'm very comfortable talking about my work,
Yeah.
but I should not be very outspoken
Yeah.
when it came to talking about emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was just a way outlet
Outlet.
for me
Yeah.
to
Makes
put it
sense.
out in the
Yeah,
words.
that makes sense. So if your poem collection is going to be out soon, we can talk about that as well. Right.
It's actually there on my personal blog, but it's
You
hidden
wouldn't want to
somewhere.
see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hidden on the blog. You can find it if you want to,
Yeah.
but it's not something that I promote because it's like I mean it's fun to just look at it after
Yeah.
5 or 6 years and
Yeah.
see what
And
are the kind of things that I used to write.
yeah, and then cringe a little, right? I do cringe when I
Yeah,
read my old stuff. Yeah, it's always.
obviously it's not mature.
Yeah.
I'm not a professional poet.
Yeah. That's all fine. But this was really fun. I had a lot of fun talking to you, and yeah, that's basically it. Uh,
Thank you so
anything?
much, Ron.
Nah, do you want to close with anything? Any closing statements?
No, I mean, if you would ask me any closing statement, I'm going to say one thing, and people who know me, they already know what's coming. I would say consistency outplays talent, which is if you want to get better at something, you have to be consistent with it.
Mm,
Talent can only give you a head start,
yeah.
but consistency is something that is going to take you
Mm, mm,
to another uh,
yeah.
to another
Greater
place,
heights.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes
And I
sense.
also have a poster about it that I've made, which is available for download on
Yeah.
Gumroad. So if
Yeah.
you want, you can also
I
get that.
remembered. I saw something like this. Then I thought you are mentioning that, but then I realized you are just quoting yourself. Yeah. I saw that poster. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess that is it. I'll just stop the recording. Hang on. Where do I?